Hello and welcome back to Bilgecast Horseman, episode 4. It's been a while. I'm Ollie Johnson. With me, as always, Seb, Hirosknight, Gran, Murasaki's Pits, Sam Congrave, and LindsayPB. How you doing, guys?
We're doing good, Ollie.
I'm fine. Screaming on the inside, but I'm fine.
Ah, yes, I know the feeling. So, right, season 4 of BoJack Horseman.
What a season!
Yeah, it's...
Can we just be grateful for the fact that the first episode doesn't even have BoJack in?
And I love that first episode. That's the ski race one, isn't
it? Yeah, it's really speaks to the confidence in their supporting characters that they're...
Weren't we saying this for like the last 3 videos though? Is that they spent all that time building up all the other characters in the background of the first season. So the point did feel like any of these characters could have, a thing of their own, and the show wouldn't fall apart without BoJack in for, to hold the show's hand.
No.
They neglected none of these characters. Everybody, I think they've done justice.
Yeah, but it just works. I mean, the first episode is just is the ridiculousness of Mr. Peanut Butter, and the fact that Diane has to deal with this without venting to BoJack.
Yeah, although, she sort of does.
Well, she does vent to him, but he doesn't respond to his
He's
phone.
around sparingly, is what I think Sam's trying to say.
Yeah.
But it's the fact she's having to deal with full-on Mr. Peanut Butter and this ridiculous thing of him trying to become the governor for a ski race.
Yeah.
Also, great reference there to the fact, the governor of California, and the fact, and he wants to live up. Woodchuck wants to live up to the accomplishments of his predecessors, like building the Golden Gate Bridge or appearing in a Batman movie. I did like.
I don't think you said anything yet, Lindsay. Don't let us push you out.
No, I mean, honestly, season 4 is my favorite season for many reasons. Mostly just because, I feel like if BoJack had just stayed away from Hollywood, he would probably have had a better shot at being happy than if he went back. Because, I mean, the whole thing is, like, the show's got a bit of a theme going on of sort of, like, BoJack is offered an out and then is too cowardly to take it or, falls back into his old habits of behavior. Like, the whole thing with Charlotte when, if he'd made a move on her back in LA, back before, horsing around and all that, he'd probably gone to New Mexico, he'd probably have been happy. But he didn't, and so he's not. And it's like, if he decided to stay away from Hollywood and just go, I'm not going to fall back into that life, again, he could well have been happy, because Lord knows he fucking wasn't in LA.
Yeah.
Well, she did make that point to him at the time, like, would you have been able to make a move on me? I don't think you would have, because you're a coward. Like, she knew full well he wouldn't.
Yeah. And, well...
I like Charlotte.
How about you, Ollie?
BoJack's got a lot of guilt to run away from this time, so he stays away for quite a while. And
well, even more in the context of later seasons.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. But
yes, boy, will we.
But yeah, with Mr. Peanut Butter being through Mr. Peanut Butter, you can see Diane's trying to be supportive, but she has that whole, he's not gonna win at all. So
she feels safe supporting him.
Yeah, she feels safe supporting him because she can appear to be, it's the awkwardness of not just the fact that he's doing this, but one of his exes is around, which is really fucking uncomfortable.
She figures she might as well support him and let it run its course because there's no chance it's going to go any further anyway.
Yeah.
But then of course,
it goes further.
Well, I think the drought thing didn't work well when he realised that the anagram, could be misleading, and then the press actually did the whole, are you going to do this?
Yes. I should now clarify that my drought program is in fact a drought relief program.
There's some other crazy jokes like that in
there. I love the wordplay in BoJack in general, but
me too. Yeah. And I think this season kind of hits its peak with all the crazy Princess Carolyn things she says.
Yeah. But also, I want to talk about the first couple episodes where, firstly, you see Hollywood without BoJack. You see that life does in fact go on. The world keeps turning without him. And
well, yeah. Well, to be fair, it wasn't like Hollywood was built
Hollywood was built around all kinds of things going on, and BoJack really wasn't even working for so many years. It's not really a surprise that the whole town just went on and didn't notice he was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked the voicemail messages that Diane kept leaving him, because it's sort of like this is what she wants to be able to vent to somebody, and she has no one to vent it to other than the voicemail.
Yeah.
Speaking of
so it's kind of understandable why she's a bit mad at him when he returns, after all that time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of which, Girl Crush, just an absolutely pitch perfect portrayal of what a lot of new media is like, which is John Wells tries very, very hard to be cool, and yet still leans on exactly the same exploitative labor practices as everybody else. In fact, worse in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know if Girl Crush was a parody of anyone specific, but yeah,
I could believe it if it was. Yeah. It felt like it was.
Well, to be fair,
they mentioned BuzzFeed by name, so I doubt it's that.
Yeah. Well, they mention Uber, they don't mention Uber by name. Actually, they do get around that when they're doing the whole
Cabracadabra. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Cabracadabra. No, that was the past season, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Todd got his drone thrown though. Todd got his drone thrown.
Yes, drone thrown.
Oh yeah, let's not forget Mr. P. Let's not forget that Mr. P. One of the first tipping points for Diane is the whole fracking thing.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear she's against it, and then due to Todd being Todd and he's being told, to sign things. If you're told to sign something, sign it, because you didn't sign last time and we didn't get the important package. So he signs, and now they're pro fracking, which pisses them off. And she's like, "Look, to be fair, you told me to sign things." So he does, and then of course they make the comment to him that you wouldn't frack in your own backyard. So Mr. Peanut Butter does, which causes them to be trapped underground and be rescued by Woodchuck.
Yeah, but I want to talk about the old Sugarman place as well. I absolutely love that episode.
That's such a good episode.
I love the flashbacks because we get to see a bit. I love that this season we get to see a bit more of Beatrice, and as we mentioned before, there's no real justification for why she treats BoJack the way she does. But
context is context.
Context. Like, seeing how she was raised, Jesus Christ, and some of the things they say. So just some of the things that they say. I know the joke is, oh, this was like the 1940s, so it's okay to say some of these things. But the first time I actually raised my eyebrow was when they went, "Oh, don't be mad, be mad at the Jews for riling up Hitler."
Oh.
Or the thing is that line, it really does go to the heart of what the upper class in America saw. The reason they did a coup against Roosevelt was they're like, oh no, if I go to war against Germany, I'm going to lose out on a lot of business opportunities. So, yeah,
Also, look at the way he treats his family, because Beatrice isn't allowed to have ice cream or anything. She's got to have sugar on a lemon. And when his wife is distraught because her son Crackerjack's dead, he literally just says, "Oh, I don't know how to deal with a woman's emotions. I was never taught, and I don't intend to learn."
Yeah,
and then
just
leaves
the character.
he just leaves her alone. So then she's in obvious distress, drinks, and drives.
Yeah, and it's an interesting through line with the present storyline of BoJack in that same house, and he develops a friendship with.
Obviously he's oblivious, but
that's what makes it fascinating to me.
Yeah, we the audience aren't oblivious, but it does explain a bit of why of Beatrice's upbringing, especially the whole being told never to love anyone as much as she loved Crackerjack.
The whole thing that I took from it, and I've got some real world context because I grew up with a mother who was a lot like Beatrice Horseman, and she had phenomenal damage from the way her own parents raised her. And it's like, you're right, it absolutely does not justify any of it, but it does go a long way to explaining why they are the way they are. I mean, it's if you look at what Beatrice went through, she learned the lesson very early on. It's just like, if you love someone, if you care about them, you're opening yourself up to get hurt. Love is for stupid, naive, uncaring people. And it's like, tying that back to my own upbringing, my own mother was very much just like, oh, well, the world's hard and cold, oh, everything's really cruel and all this. And then, as the older I got, the more I kind of noticed that, her own mother was like that, but worse. So it's interesting how sort of like the abuse and the toxicity just cascaded down the generations.
Yeah,
and the difference between me and someone like BoJack, though, is I recognize the pattern. I'm intending to break it, and that's something that I don't think BoJack ever managed to do until perhaps the final season, and even then it's left open whether he will or not.
I think the thing that he pushes it over the bridge as well is when she gets sick, and then they start burning her possessions, including the very important ones. And then even when he says, "You don't want to end up like your mother, do you?" And
by that point, there's nothing left of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Because if you notice in the flashbacks as well, when she does have a few dementia flashbacks where people's faces are cut out, her mother, like the people obviously that she doesn't care about or weren't important enough, they just don't have faces.
Yeah,
they're not important. And of course, Henrietta has her face cut out. The theory behind that is that she doesn't want to remember, and her mother is completely like shadowed out in a whole shadow of her former self thing, because her mother is just now used as an example of if you step out of line, this is what can happen. Because all it took was one accident and her mother acting hysterical. And then they lobotomized her.
That was actually quite a common practice at the time, though, wasn't it?
I know it was a common practice. It's just when you see how she is at the beginning, when she's joking around, playing the piano and everything, and says the whole times arrow marches forward thing, and then then of course Crackerjack dies, depression hits in, her husband's not being supportive, she drinks a bit too much. She doesn't know how to deal with any of it, so her husband's first response is to lobotomize the fuck out of her. And in doing so, she's not hysterical, but she's just not herself anymore. She doesn't even seem to remember how to play the piano, or just can't.
I don't know how they write these things so well, because that's just too real for comfort.
It's very real for comfort. Like, my own family's history, my dad's side of the family was the posh side. But I actually had a great aunt who was like me, who was a butch lesbian, and, late 40s, early 50s England, that shit didn't fly, and she ended up getting committed and lobotomized, which my family was like, oh, well, she's not very active anymore, but at least she'll wear a dress without complaint. It's just that brutal conformist mindset where it's just like, my wife is embarrassing me, I'm going to fix her.
Oh. Turns the stomach.
I'm not a fan of the whole, this doesn't go to my sensibilities, let's fix it.
Absolutely.
Trust me, my sister thought I was gay once and then once tried to fix me. Because of a joke. A joke I made over the phone to my friend saying, I joked and said, please, come on, I'll suck your dick, as a joke.
Sort of makes me appreciate my family more, and that I've never had to put up with anything like that.
Yeah, but she literally tried to fix me. It was a stupid way of fixing me, but there we go. Even though I'm not gay, that was a joke. Can you not understand tone of voice? Jesus Christ, woman.
Yeah, because something else that sort of leapt out at me is sort of like, my own family, I was very much seen as an investment. It's like, oh, we had children to continue the family line and take care of us.
I never got that mentality, I never got it.
Yeah. And the thing that struck me is just like when, in one of the flashbacks when BoJack's a baby, like, one of the things Beatrice says just before a flash forward is, you'd better be worth all this. And,
oh, shit.
Yeah.
Well, you're not.
Yeah, because the whole thing that strikes me is like when you look at BoJack's life, he never really liked acting. It was always something he was forced into, like being made to sing a Lollipop song, trying to get a break in Hollywood. Because everything he's good at. It's obviously, his passion.
It's nice to see that's a way to get approval, doesn't it?
The Lollipop song scene is actually where I get one of my favourite Beatrice lines from.
What's that?
Can't live on Won't Street.
Can't live in a house on Won't Street. But
I like how that explains all the silly sort of phrases that they, BoJack says, like newsflash, shitty dad does shitty thing on shitty road or something like that. So what kind of newspaper headline is that?
Also, can we talk about his dad, BoJack's dad, as well, and how Beatrice deals with that? Since we're on the Beatrice situation already, she's at that whole party thing. He's gate crashing. things happen.
Yeah.
And then she's like afraid of losing him or anything, so she gets with him. And again, good line, the whole, you want me to go work for your father and get paid for it like some kind of slave. That is the opposite of slavery.
I do like that line.
Because of that novel, you can just see she's not exactly nice to BoJack.
Yeah.
But she's even worse to she's passive aggressive as fuck to his dad. And I did love the whole when Henrietta comes in and it's clear there's something going on.
It's both funny and uncomfortable at the same time because
yeah,
how delicious it is.
For me, the funniness comes out of just the responses she has. Like when Butterscotch fucks up and he knows he's fucked up. And he's talking to her not in an angry way or a condescending way like he usually does. He's actually like trying to talk to her. He's like, "Well, there's been an accident with a maid. See, she got herself pregnant. Oh, she got herself pregnant." And then like when he's trying to get
tripped and fell on a penis.
What, she tripped, fell, landed on his dick. But then he tries to get mad at her, and then she responds back at him, like, lets out all the aggression, and then he finally breaks down and begs her. And that brings the whole Henrietta thing.
Yeah. I want to get back to something Lindsay said about BoJack never really wanting to be an actor, never really liking what he was doing. But
he wanted approval.
Yeah, and that reminds me of so many things, because
didn't want to be an actor either, but
that's a different situation though. Sarah Lynn simply didn't know any better.
She was a child who her family literally forced her into it to make money.
Yeah, and that is so relatable when parents don't if you want approval, you're going to convince yourself that you want to do the thing that you think you need to do to get it. And there are so many characters you could use as a case study for that. And
well, even when he did do his acting and he did actually get on TV and stuff, it was never enough for Beatrice anyway. He was never going to win her affection. I mean, you've seen how she responded to his thing, going, "There was someone wearing a shirt in the theatre. A shirt, BoJack."
Yes,
that's the worst thing that's ever happened in a theatre.
Yeah. And
the shirt had a slogan on it saying, "Just do it." I don't know what the it was referring to, but I will not be spoken to like that by an article of clothing. I hope you die before me so you don't have to live with this shame.
Yeah, but that...
And of course, the way she talks about divorce, because BoJack does that whole, "Why can't you just get a divorce?" thing. Is, well, that's the Hollywood way of dealing with it. It's not working out. Divorce. We don't love each other. Divorce. Our adult son has moved out and there's nothing keeping us together anymore. Divorce.
Those are perfectly valid reasons to get a divorce.
Well, who'd have me?
That need for approval can be such a defining character trait, and sometimes it's the only thing that motivates a character. And I'm going to reference another show here. Just look at Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender. I referenced Avatar. I'm a writing YouTuber now.
Yeah, we did it all.
That's how that works. But yeah, seriously.
I'm being reminded of the whole thing. I'm being reminded of the whole Uncle Iroh's voice actor singing before he died.
Yeah, but the whole just wanting parental approval and your parents to be proud of you and convincing yourself and going all out for what you think it makes sense for you to want is a pretty universal thing. And
a lot of people can relate to it.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why this show is so successful.
Yeah.
We haven't. It's been. I think this is the first time we've done one of these things that we haven't even gotten into Todd or Princess Carolyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard to discuss everything because we could be here forever and still not even scratch the surface. It's an iceberg show.
Well, Princess Carolyn has that whole thing with that mouse guy.
Yeah, Ralph.
And he never really comes back later.
Yeah.
Well, her whole thing is dealing with the miscarriage thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
This season...
is the reason I couldn't watch season 4 with my wife, because her family has a history of it.
Yeah.
But she has that whole thing, and she doesn't tell him that she does this because she's convinced herself she can have kids because her mom did it. She's got so many siblings, but so she thinks that naturally she should be able to do it as well. and they're having to go through all those ridiculous situations, like that ovulation watch with the boy.
With the voice of Harvey Firestein.
I think that was actually him, and I
It was.
love that he's still doing
The
stuff.
thing that makes that funnier is the whole, Officer Meow Meow.
Oh yeah, and his reaction. I like how he doesn't really get it all the time.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. He thinks there's someone else there, and then they just have sex in the back of his car.
Well, another important part of this story is the introduction of, and let me see if I can get it right, Hollyhock, Mannheim, Guerrera, Silberslug, Sung, Fonzarelli, McQuack.
You did, Ollie. And
Hooray!
Yeah, she is important.
Yeah.
I don't know. We haven't mentioned her yet. That's crazy.
Because there's so much going on in BoJack that it's not really, the later seasons especially feel less like BoJack's story and more BoJack's story is just one of many other stories going on and showing that everyone else has a life. I mean, hell, Todd even has that whole thing when he runs into BoJack again, and because he's been gone a year, and when BoJack offers to him to come in, he's like, BoJack, I haven't seen you for a year, and that has worked for me.
Yeah.
That's
Todd. He's just honest, and that's one of the reasons why he's one of the most likable characters.
I can't wait till we get to Henry Fondelberg.
Oh, that's the next season.
Yeah, I know. That's my favourite Todd stuff.
Yeah. Well,
but
I love the first episode, like Hooray a Todd episode this time, because that's the one where he's supposed to be part of that orchestra, isn't it? And
yes.
I think of that line. It's a very detailed thing about how he rescued his daughter and then gave her an explanation of the circumcision.
Yeah. He should have the option to become religious if he so chooses.
It's the fact that it had a spirited debate.
Yeah, on a helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a helicopter.
I just think that episode's fantastic, and I love Todd's storyline in this season.
Yeah.
Todd's storylines are always fun. In general, now
Todd is the levity of the show, which, since it's a comedy show, is quite a distinction actually, because Todd is normally there to break up the tension, provide levity to prevent the mood from getting too low.
Which is difficult when BoJack has to go introduce, when they're trying to find Hollyhawks. They make it very a good point early on that Hollyhawk's not there to find out, to really build much of a relationship with her quote-unquote potential father, BoJack. She just wants to know about who she is and where she comes from and everything, which goes through BoJack's his treatment of women, which will come back later to bite him on the ass. Yeah. But then introducing her to his mother, who is, demented at this point.
Yeah, I liked the storyline about him having to look after his mother, and
I like the choice he makes at the end, because he makes that point that he wants to help her memory, just so that when she finally gains a little bit of who she was and recognizes him, he can say "fuck you" to her. Yeah. And then when he has the chance, because she does that whole thing where Hollyhock gets sick due to her putting those tablets in her coffee. And BoJack,
for once, it wasn't BoJack's fault.
Yeah,
and you see, BoJack is so angry about it because she's done it that he just puts her in the shittiest place he possibly can as some kind of catharsis. And when he finally says, "That's it,"
because of his self-doubting voice and his anxiety, he very quickly and easily believed that he was responsible for what happened to Hollyhock.
Yeah. Oh,
most of the problems that happen usually are related to him in some capacity, so he's kind of used to it at this point.
I just want to point out that one scene where he gets Mr. Peanut Butter to sniff Beatrice for the doll, and he goes over to the kitchen counter and picks up Hollyhock's coffee mug, and Beatrice looks alarmed when he does, and I just love that little touch.
Tiny details. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's when he finally says to her, "This is it. This is what your life has led up to you. You all alone here forever," and then just leaves, and then suddenly her sanity comes back.
Yeah.
And she's complete,
The,
and she's actually in a state he's never seen her in, because she's always only ever seen him. He's only ever really seen her like looking down on him, yelling at him, or condescending him in some capacity.
And then for the first time, he's seeing his mother vulnerable, and
she's vulnerable and she's terrible. The theme a lot of people had was that Beatrice is afraid of losing everything.
So
like the theory is that she didn't abort BoJack because she was afraid of losing that. She didn't leave Butterscotch because she was afraid of being left alone after him, and divorce was kind of a bad thing back then.
She's understandable.
Chronic fear of loss, I think, is the
chronic fear of loss, and it's only when she's lost everything, suddenly she's terrified, and BoJack has the chance right there to do exactly what he's always wanted, to tell her fuck you for everything, and instead he sits down and tries to keep her calm.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I gotta say, as someone who has said fuck you for everything to my own mother, it doesn't provide the catharsis you might hope it would.
I know.
Like, you still gotta work through your feelings.
Oh, I know it's an empty thing in the end. I've told my mom "fuck you" on numerous occasions. I've told her I wish she was dead on numerous occasions.
I mean, I was so badly housebroken that I couldn't even look her in the face when I finally broke things off with her.
I don't want mine near my child. That's the situation I'm in.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like I would. If I'm ever gonna have kids, I wouldn't want her near my child either, because she would, do the whole mind games thing she does.
Well,
it's always very psychological. Where it's just like, oh well, I'm going to help out because I know you'd never be a good mother. Like all that.
Yes, I get that. I get that a lot. We've made it a very big rule where I've told my wife multiple times, my mom can't be trusted because she's fucked me up. She's fucked my sister up and made her a complete mess. And she's ruined every relationship she's ever had. She can't tell the truth to any of us, and I don't want her ruining my daughter. So never leave her alone with her. Never let her look after her on her own. Always keep either you, your parents in the room, or me in the room with her if my mother is ever left alone with our child, because I don't trust her to behave or treat her right.
I'll just not share this on Facebook on the off chance that your mum finds it, Sam.
My mum doesn't understand how the internet works. I'm not even joking.
Which is probably for the better by the sounds of it.
No, my mum doesn't understand how phones work. She's only just discovered DVD players.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. And quite frankly, at this point, she knows exactly how it is. She knows exactly how I feel about it. I feel about everything, and she understands why I live several hundred miles away from her. And make very little contact.
The distance is incidental. You moved away for reasons other than that.
Yeah. I moved away for a lot of reasons. The most important of which being with the woman I love.
Yeah.
And the people who actually treat me like a family.
Yeah.
But there are many reasons I left. Not a lot I want to get into. But the point is that, getting back to BoJack.
Yeah.
She's
by the end, his mother was so terrified, vulnerable, and honestly kind of pathetic looking to him, probably, that he just couldn't bring himself to unload on her.
That was the thing. He was in the perfect state of mind to do it as well. He was angry. He's had years of resentment towards his mother because of the way she's treated him.
Yeah.
And the way she's treated his vocation and everything else, because one of the things he used to do was blame his family for everything. And then, of course, the whole thing with Hollyhock, he actually genuinely seemed to be getting on with Hollyhock for a bit.
Yeah, and
then everything went to shit, and in his mind, she's ruined something again.
Yeah, the one thing that for once wasn't his fault.
I think it's fair to say that for the first time, at the end of this season, we see evidence that BoJack can change fundamentally for the better.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he's shown compassion before, but
admit, it is a big thing for him to not go the easy route and finally just say fuck you and finally unload and let almost 50 years worth of resentment out on his mother. It's the fact that he decides to actually be nice to her for once, show her the kindness she never showed him as a child, and let her feel at peace, because he's already told she's not going to live that long.
Yeah.
So there's that whole thing. So that was a nice little roundup thing for, nice little thing BoJack did. Not that it'll do much for him in the long run. Also, really uncomfortable episode. The one with the mass shootings constantly happening.
Yeah, I want to I want to address the whole Courtney Portnoy thing, and Diane, and due to her, Diane carrying a gun, and then the fact that, you know, the whole gun legislation thing that happens, and
Oh god, that.
it was quite poignant, like the fact that Diane literally has to carry a gun to feel safe, and that, like, BoJack is not subtle about these things. It says what it's trying. It says what it's trying to say very literally in places. Like, I finally feel how a man feels all the time. Yeah, and then, well, she's already been arguing with Mr. Peanut Butter over the fracking thing publicly, which, you know, she was sort of manipulated into by her boss at Girl Crush for the clicks, really.
Also, the shock.
Yeah, she can be really terrible.
Also, the shock when the mass shooting happens, and they're surprised when it's a woman.
Well,
yeah, that was interesting.
Has anyone forgotten that the first modern mass shooter, of the modern era, was a woman?
I don't think that's the point.
I know that's not the point, but I think it's the thing that people forget is the first person to do a mass shooting was a woman who shot people up because she hated Mondays.
They don't care about that. They don't. They're shocked that it's a woman and are worried about it because the star of their movie, which has a lot of public shootings, is a woman, and this is going to make that look bad.
Their concern comes from more of a commercial standpoint than
Well,
anything else.
speaking of commercial, that's pretty much what their movie became, wasn't it? When they had to remove everything.
I liked
It was
that.
just a commercial.
What was the store? Can you show me the way to whatever store? Sure.
Also, the fact that every time they're trying to pitch new ideas, the phone rings and there's another report of another mass shooting. Like, oh.
Yeah. And thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. Oh, there's been another mass shooting, thoughts and prayers.
Also, I know I say this every season, but I love Judah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love him more than I should. I just want
Thing
to
is,
drag
you
on
can
his
never
little...
say it enough, Sam. You know, the more the more you say it, the better.
Judah is love. Judah is love.
He is. He's better than Shrek. I said it.
Oh, load of nightmares that are never going to leave my head.
Right.
What was that Shrek thing last week, Ollie? I know I'm going off topic, but there was that weird Shrek. Oh yes, it was that the Big Mickey character I created in that Let's Play looked more like Shrek than Big Mickey.
Yeah.
And that was an intention.
Yeah.
I'm just terrible at creating characters, apparently.
Yeah. And then Diane actually gets California to pass sensible gun legislation because it was either that or treat women with respect.
I like that's just ultimate reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Just...
I can't believe this country hates women more than it loves guns. No? The no at the end from Princess Caroline killed me. Like, no?
Well, Princess Caroline, when it comes to certain things...
She's very shrewd about how things work.
Yeah, she knows what's up.
She seems very disingenuous when it comes to certain things.
Well, she has to be. It's the environment she works
I know
in.
she has to be. It's kind of, also, the whole thing with the woodchuck's hands.
Yeah.
That's a gag I love a lot, where he loses his hands and they give him gorilla hands and lobster hands.
Gorilla feet.
Your hands are being very aggressive right now.
His promises are as broken as his hands.
That is a compelling argument. He does have broken hands.
Come on, you really going to argue with a woodchuck that can pinch your nipples like that?
Yeah. I want to talk about the Ruthie episode, Princess Caroline's future setting, where that
was a heartbreaking episode.
Yeah.
I struggled to get that one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, it makes me feel better.
Oh,
the episodes that humanize Princess Caroline, they're heartbreaking, but at the same time, they're nice for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's behind all of that shit she has to deal with, especially with the last season when you see BoJack's former agent and how he treated her.
Yeah.
Which is still never going to not be a thing for me.
Character in this show, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot because they're all well written.
I think she's got the best character arc in general out of everyone.
Yeah. And
Maybe Diane does, but there's so many to choose from. It's hard to say.
Like, to a point, Princess Carolyn is what her job made her, but she has her own like wants and dreams for the future, and like I don't know, I really felt it for her that episode because she was having the worst day.
Yeah.
And
it was foreshadows. We were forewarned. The show is good at doing that.
yeah.
It gets worse when you see how her mother was.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Shitty parents are just a thing, aren't they?
They really are. I mean, like,
Look,
genuinely.
Todd's parents are actually the nicest out of everyone, to be perfectly honest. Apart from maybe let's just reach a little and maybe saying that Mr. Peanut Butters are probably nice as well.
Well, everything to do with Mr. Peanut Butter is infuriatingly nice.
Well, Diane's parents were kind of assholes to a ridiculous degree. BoJack's parents weren't exactly great. Todd's parents are okay. They're not. I wouldn't say they're bad.
Absentee for the moment, but they're not bad people. Like,
they're not bad.
Do you know what the most terrifying bit of the entire show is to me?
Go on.
Like, you know when Princess Carolyn's mother is begging her to stay?
Oh god.
I've been in a situation like that, and I'm realizing if I'd chosen to stay, I would still be trapped there. So that's just like the real adult fear to me.
I think everyone should leave their hometown. Like,
Well, Ollie will test. I've done that. I've done that as well. I've had to do that as well. I've mentioned on the show before that when I left England, my mom still holds resentment and still won't forgive me for leaving. Because I literally told her I'm leaving to get married. I'm going to be with this woman for a while, forever, and we can't live in England. So we've compromised and we're going to go live in Scotland. And she decided to forget it was ever going to happen because God forbid I ever leave. And then when it did happen, she actually wouldn't even talk to me for the entire week I was still in England. I mean, I got to see Ollie, I think, once before I left.
Was that when you saw me as well, or was that a different time?
I think so. I came down for 1 week and pretty much said, I'm down here for 1 week. I wanted to spend it with people. I saw Ollie maybe once during the time, and I saw him more than I actually saw my mom because she walked off and wouldn't even talk to me the entire time. And it became a whole, who's going to pay my bills now? Who's going to do this for me? Who's going to, basically do the stuff I don't want to do?
Do you know, I don't know how many of you can relate to this. I don't know if you'll relate to this, but one of the things I noticed about my own mother is, like, she didn't seem to know who I was or what I was doing. Like, when I was preparing to move to Leicester, when I'd moved back to their house briefly after, finishing my first degree at Loughborough, I remember I'd mentioned to her several times, like, oh, I'm going to go and study at De Montfort, so I'm looking for a flat in Leicester. And I remember I told her, like, literally an hour later, it's like, oh, by the way, I've got a viewing of an apartment in Leicester, I'm going to go look at it. And she was like, oh, what's this obsession with Leicester? And it's just like, I'm going there to study at university? Like, just the idea that I am my own person, making my own decisions, and I am looking at the town I want to move to, just didn't seem to cross her head. She was just like, oh, well, I know you, and you wouldn't do this. And it's like...
I had that. My mom...
Definitely relatable.
My mom didn't know... Yeah, my mom doesn't really know anything about me. She didn't really know what I liked to eat. It got to that point. And when I kept saying I was moving up to Scotland, she did the whole "what's the obsession with living in Scotland" thing. Go, why do you want to live there? And she tried to like downplay it.
I think
it's like you're never allowed to have interests. It's always, oh, you're obsessed with this.
Oh no, it was what they said after. It was what they said after I left. When it became official and went, look, the paperwork has been signed, because I had to go behind her back, get a lawyer and do everything and get everything signed and done behind her back because she wasn't going to sign it. And
we have a commenter.
If it makes a difference, I think you did right things.
Well, Jack asks, how is everyone keeping?
I know my approval probably means nothing, but if it helps a little, it helps a little.
Well, the general consensus I get from people is I made the right choice, but I went through, I got everything done, and when the paperwork was done, she couldn't argue. So once it's all official, and I'm moving my stuff up in a van, I've got my name down, all my details are changed, so my bank details are changed so that this is my default address and everything. My sister sat me down and went, to be honest, we didn't honestly think you'd ever move out. We thought you'd live with Mom until she dies and then come live with us. because we
It's
didn't
nice
think
to know they had
someone.
such high expectations of you.
No, it was basically we didn't think someone with your disability would be able to live like a normal person.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I've
it's
had
that kind of infantilization. I mean, like, one of the worst things that happened to me, and one of the things I actually bear the biggest grudge against my mum for, is, I really struggled in my first couple of years of secondary school because, I was in the closet, I was a lesbian and trying to hide it from people, and I got bullied a lot, and, I was very clearly uncomfortable with my own skin in a way which, other kids picked up on immediately. And her response to this was to basically just take this as evidence that, oh, you're autistic. And the moment that happened, she just had her perfect go-to excuse to just dismiss me, to override my experiences, to, imply that me being bullied was my fault. It's just like, oh, well, if you picked up on the cues, it wouldn't be a problem. And the thing is, it's like, I read people just fine. I am not autistic. Like, I have been independently assessed for this multiple times, and I have ADHD, but I don't have autism, and the ADHD is why I was struggling so much at school. But in her mind, it was just like, oh, well, now I get to treat you like an idiot 5-year-old who doesn't know what faces are, and it's just... She did it anyway, but now she had an excuse, and it became that much more egregious. I think about me in third person while I was standing there, like I couldn't hear her, and I was just looking at her and clocking the face of the person that she was looking to, and they were just looking at me and just looking at her and being like, this woman is fucking demented. And it's like, yeah, she was.
My wife's just come down. It's like, oh, I don't recognise that voice.
I mean, just a reminder, in case you don't feel comfortable talking about this thing in public, we are doing this as a live stream. I just wanted to remind everyone, because it's very easy to forget
the thing
when
is,
you get into a conversation.
What Lucy's just said is pretty much word for word how my parents treated me as soon as they found out that I had anything like that. So, and once they found out they could get money out of it, hoo boy.
Oh, yeah.
To a lesser extent, but me too. I think, I want to go and live in Leicester. My mum knows I want to go and live in Leicester, and I think she's all right with this. I just don't have the means to at the moment. So
remember when I tried to get you into when I had to get you a form for college?
Yeah.
And we needed your mum's signature, and then you went and showed it to her, and she just laughed at you.
Yes, I do remember that.
The idea of you ever going to college, and then it took someone else literally yelling at your mum to tell her, hey, he's actually got the capacity to go. It took that. I mean, that made me angry as hell. But getting back to it, that's the kind of person that Princess Caroline's mother is. For context, that's what her mother. That's, to be honest, she treats Princess Caroline like she's a means to an end.
Right. Well, I've actually got something to say about that. What she says is people are given numbers. People are giving winning or losing numbers, and we're all on a roulette wheel. I kind of think that's just something she has to tell herself so that she doesn't feel bad about where she ended up.
It's the excuse to justify why she's not living.
Because
it's one of those living vicarious.
Yeah, because if Princess Caroline can better herself, then that means that she could have done as well, and I don't think she really wants to have to deal with that.
Well, no. You see, that would require work and taking responsibility. And it's just, and you can see the toll it takes on Princess Caroline, everything she has to go through, and not only that, I think it's when she speaks to the guy's dad as well, when in that situation, and all of the conditions she has to meet. Just, but yeah, the roofie situation. The thing that made me feel uncomfortable in the episode I would never show my wife is the one where they go to visit Rufy's parents. Well, that guy's parent, that mouse guy's parents.
Oh, Ralph's parents.
Oh, that was awful.
Oh, good lord.
That was horrible, because at the time, I want to remind you that when this episode came out, Elizabeth was pregnant.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And I want to make a point here that, again, Elizabeth's family has a history of miscarriage, and Liz is very prone to, emotional stress. And one of the reasons we didn't tell my family any of this was because my sister threatened if we ever had a child, she'd have it taken away from us because we're disabled, so why could we have a kid? But there was also the fact that I even quoted Princess Caroline when I actually explained to my parents why I didn't tell them. Because when I did tell them eventually, they screamed, why didn't you tell us as soon as she was pregnant? And I went, well, the thing is, Elizabeth's family is very prone to, this. And we didn't want to give you news when it turns out there's nothing. Hell, and we wanted to get through the dangerous phase first. So that episode was very uncomfortable for me to watch because I tend to watch certain things before I even dare to show it to Liz.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's sensible.
this episode hit. If there was a whole thing of this may have one joke that's offensive, this entire thing, the whole when she comes over and they don't tell his parents that she's pregnant and they want to do everything that's dangerous.
It's very on the nose, isn't
Yeah.
it? Which BoJack is prone to.
Yeah.
I mean, it never means any harm, but it's very prone to.
Why do they have a roller coaster? And why do they consider punching someone in the stomach a friendly thing?
I know.
I mean, then it gets to the racism of the whole
Yeah.
anti-cat thing in front of the cat.
In fairness, we're not supposed to be rooting for these people.
Yeah.
I know
And then,
we're not
like, even
supposed to.
Ralph says, "Oh, there's nothing too anti-cat about it." Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It's like church. You say the words so much you forget what they mean.
It's the equivalent of, and I don't know if I'm going a bit too overboard here, it's the equivalent of literally doing one of those old-fashioned southern lynching things in front of, I'm not going to go any further. It's really fucking uncomfortable. It's really horrible to watch, even though it's cats. It's animals, but you know where it's going, and it's really fucking uncomfortable.
It's actually really easy to forget that the cast of BoJack are animals. Yes, Jack, I have watched the Charlie Chaplin dictator speech. Yeah, Jack's in the comments.
Yeah, but
What do you want to know about that for?
I don't know, but he asked the question and I answered it.
The point is, you know that it's it's kind of offensive for them.
Yeah. And, well, she even tries to be nice about it. Says, that's a misconception. Cats do take baths. And the only response she gets is, darling, licking yourself doesn't qualify.
Oh.
Oh boy.
I could make several jokes there, but you know what? That's beneath me at this point. This is just horrifying. I mean, I've made the joke occasionally during role play sessions where someone's made a meow thing at my character who's a cat character, and I've gone, hey, that means something completely different in my language. That's wrong. You can't say that. But that's a thing. Only cats can say that. But yeah, that was horribly uncomfortable. And then it's the fact that he treats it as normal.
Yeah, like, he grew up in this, and it's like, he's so used to it that he just doesn't notice how bad it is. You see it so much it becomes invisible.
But the fact is, he knows it. He grew up around it, but he knows it's probably not appropriate, but then still treats it as a whole. No, just bop it, take it on the nose. Not really considering how this is probably making her feel.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's never been in that situation with someone who would find it uncomfortable before. So, like...
I know, but it's the fact that he's doing that, but he's getting into... They're talking about treating this as a very serious situation because she's pregnant, and, that's a big thing. And I mean, it all ends when, she has the miscarriage again, and she's just willing to keep going and going. And he suggests other options, and then she just suggests he gets out.
Yeah.
And that's that. That's just the end of it.
Yeah. I think we've barely touched on Todd. And Hollyhock.
We
need to touch on the Todd Hawk.
Yeah. Todd Hawk. Yeah. Down goes Todd, and up comes Todd, are the first words that Hollyhock hears him say.
Can I just say that, like, Todd Hawk sounds like the name of a ship that Tumblr would fight over?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. Oh, God. The breaking of Tumblr was the breaking of the seventh seal.
And now we're in the apocalypse.
Oh, God. Well, I'm just going to do exactly what I told my grandma would happen when she told me that eventually the end of days would come. The four horsemen would reap across the world, spreading pestilence, death, and everything else. I told her, okay.
Considering the name of the show.
I said, well, what I'm going to do then, Grandma, is I'm going to sit in my chair, I'm going to open a beer, and maybe play the tuba. Just wait for it to happen. I know that's a Robin Williams thing when they say, well, when Gabriel blows his trumpet and the apocalypse happens, you'll have to burn in hell. No, madam. When Gabriel blows his horn, I shall be playing the tuba. Robin Williams and his hatred of Christianity.
I miss Robin Williams.
I miss him too. But in all seriousness, yeah. Getting back before we get sidetracked again, Todd, 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 Todd.
Ta 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 ta.
Ta ta
Yes.
ta 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 ta.
First real work in anything is helping Hollyhock find, BoJack, and then
Yeah.
asleep on the
But
couch.
he's having to do so many things at once that day, and
God,
as a result, he
everyone-
signs in favour of fracking for Mr. Peanut Butter by accident.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
so-
he did it because he was told to sign anything with his name on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And then, well, Todd's arc in this season is,
I love it.
well, I'm trying to remember what it actually is, because I remember.
Well, it's him coming to terms with his asexuality and deciding what that means to him.
so
And it's good
also,
that we see that in a show because
Also, can we please point out that for just a minute, he was the governor of California?
Yeah.
that's right, he
Because of-
was.
Because of the poor wording of the contract, that the first person to go through the finish line would be the governor, and
Todd
Woodchuck came
forever!
he became second.
I
So
like
he
how he instantly resigned.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to do it. This is after also the kettle corn.
Yeah.
He steals posh man's kettle corn. Travesty.
Oh.
Down
then he-
goes Todd, and up goes Todd.
Yeah, I mean, he helps BoJack. He does the whole thing, signing of fracking, which comes back to bite Mr. Peanut Butter on the ass.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful show. Man.
Oh, and and of course, let's not forget the bridge to Hawaii, which is a thing.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll drive to Hawaii, which is a thing you can do now. And
Oh, and Courtney almost got married. Oh, I forgot. Todd almost got married.
yeah, to Courtney Portnoy in that sham relationship that she was, and Todd started a fashion trend.
I liked that where L entrance. Gracias.
Yeah. Todd.
Yeah. And of course,
We have to discuss Mr. Peanut Butter, Matt.
yeah, his
Oh, Mr. Peanut Butter is the grand explosive finale with chunks in it.
Yeah.
he doesn't go through a whole lot of development himself, but he facilitates a lot of it in others, I think.
Yeah.
The fact that a lot of the acts he does, everything, spaghetti strainers, spaghetti strainers, becoming the governor of California or running for it, all the crazy shit that happens. That's
Crazy shit.
it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's really what future seasons take from his events in this season is largely his relationship to Diane, and how that changes.
He acts as a distraction, quite literally.
Yeah, and well, he only wants to be governor because well.
Also, a small thing I've noticed as well, whenever they show the, powerful no-nonsense women characters, they all seem to just latch onto and love Todd in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
like
because Todd doesn't immediately try to come onto them,
Yeah.
which in
That's
Oscar
true.
is a rare thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's the woman from Girl Cruise seems to like the weird shit he's doing, but the best one is still the director.
Yeah.
from the previous
Kelsey.
one. She
Yeah,
just
I like
loves
Kelsey.
him.
But it's probably because
Oh,
they
he's
don't feel
lovely.
threatened by him.
Yeah.
How can you feel threatened by a guy who wears a beanie? A beanie, and also thought he went into a machine that took away his, that made him cool.
Oh yeah, that's like the second season,
Oops,
wasn't
did I do that?
it?
Toad.
No,
Todd,
It
who's
is.
Todd?
Oh,
I didn't
damn.
say Todd.
Steals a motorbike and they don't batter him.
Toad Chevet.
Oh,
Toad.
what's on where he beats up the person who goes, "There's a new sheriff in this town." I'm saying, yeah, there was an election the other day. Thank you for letting us all know about that, you going strange.
Oh yeah, that's next season.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, where Mr. Peanut Butter's trying to make himself look like a bad boy so that he can get a role on Filbert.
Oh yes. Well, what did we think of Hollyhock? I like Hollyhock.
Yeah.
And,
Hollyhock wasn't
one of my
as
favourite characters.
well, she doesn't do the whole. She doesn't feel too intrusive. It's
Like,
kind of par for the course.
She blends in, doesn't she?
yeah. Well,
She does blend in. She does blend in, and her whole thing is her whole arc really is just at first finding BoJack and going through the whole Channing, the whole thing where they the Channing Tatum thing.
and she pretends to be that. But Hollyhock as a person she is very like BoJack, almost in spite of the fact that she had 8 good parents to,
Yeah, she's really just there for answers. It's just the roads to those answers is a very, very awkward and very uncomfortable ride, including one where BoJack has to meet up with the president of his fan club, of which he has sex with.
Yeah. Oh god.
She's a bit of the bad side of BoJack.
Yeah, and she does have some of his insecurities, like the whole self-hatred and the anxiety thing, and I think that's interesting because she is completely separate from the style of, for lack of a better term, nurture that made BoJack the way he was, and yet
it just goes to show, you don't necessarily need lots and lots of trauma for these things to be, anxiety to be a thing.
Yeah, and of course, because BoJack has never been positively reinforced, he doesn't know how to help her, and often exacerbates things. Like,
that's BoJack.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
And the line that she says that gets me the most is, that voice that tells you, everyone hates you and they're not wrong to feel that way? That's just a teenage girl thing, right? It goes away, doesn't it? And BoJack just goes, yeah.
There's no one else to say.
Yeah. Like, Hollyhock this season struck me as, like, when you see some, like, I don't want to come across as patronising, but as someone that...
Come across as patronising so we can criticise you for it.
No, I will not. But...
We can jump down your throat, you pygmy!
But, the way she talks about herself and about others, like... BoJack's instinct is to try and protect her, and that's the instinct that I would have felt, and it feels like,
Sarah Lynn thing,
you should try to protect her from Hollywood and the world in general, but also BoJack does it in the worst possible ways. He BoJacks it up quite spectacularly. Like... the time she starts getting on with that film crew assistant, Miles, and BoJack is convinced that he's a dirtbag that doesn't really like her, and, tries to sabotage her relationship.
Kind of right.
Like, the fact that he turned out to be right entirely relevant at this juncture, though.
No,
like,
it really isn't.
He was right, but the ways in which he went about it were wrong.
Yeah. Like, he shouldn't have tried to sabotage her relationships with people, like, at all. End of story.
No.
Yeah, but he does this all the time. I mean, remember...
Why is he so good at sabotage?
He was trying to... Keep in mind, he sabotages things all the time. He sabotaged the rock opera with character actress Margot Martindale. He used it... He... tried to sabotage the marriage of Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, even though, spoiler warning, that relationship really didn't go well. It was eventually going to break. It's just not at that.
In trying to warn Hollyhock that people in Hollywood were superficial, he gives her a complex about her weight. Like, there are so many better ways he could have gone about that. But then Beatrice slips diet pills into a coffee, and poor Hollyhock. And
the fact that she's hospitalized is bad enough, but it's also the fact that right after that he loses access to Hollyhock on, order of her,
On order of her 8 dads.
father, her 8 dads.
Yeah. But
although he does go out of his way to find her mother.
Yeah.
Even knowing full well that Hollyhock may not want to talk to him, and they may not want him there, but that's what she came to Hollywood for.
Yeah.
Was to find her mother.
Those few times BoJack does do the decent thing, even at no advantage to himself, are what keeps you rooting for him through the later seasons.
Yeah, so he does that knowing full well that this may be the end, and in the end, she does call him up, after finding out, that she's technically his sister, his half sister.
Yeah.
And she's okay with that, and he's actually in a happy place.
Yeah, this is probably the most upbeat ending to an arc in the series.
Yeah, right after
Oh,
has pitched Filbert.
Yeah. And, Princess Carolyn forges BoJack's signature.
Yeah.
That's how low she gets. She's so desperate to see... she's attached significance to the name Filbert because it was the name she was going to give her baby before... you know what happened.
Yeah.
And she's so desperate to get this project off the ground that she actually forges BoJack's signature. Not that it ends up mattering because he agrees to do it anyway. But
it's just the principle.
The fact that she did.
So, also we get to see a bit more of BoJack's complex as well when he does the whole calling himself a stupid piece of shit, and you just hear his monologue for the whole episode.
Yeah. And, that's a damning display of what too much negative reinforcement in parenting can do to a person.
Yeah.
Because, creative types, I hate to use that term, but people who are creatively inclined, shall we say, have a lot of insecurity issues anyway. And
aren't necessarily understood by people who aren't.
Yeah. There's a lot of... people put a lot of their self-worth into what people think of their work, and it doesn't really, and that's not really intrinsic. So BoJack has come to rely on the admiration of others, like his celebrity status, but then he never really learned to, how do I say this, give that kind of affirmation to himself. So all he does in his own head is run himself down, and he does deserve a lot of it, but it's
not to the degree that he.
Yeah, and by the way, what I said about people who are creatively inclined being, that's a generalization. I'm not saying everyone who has ever created is like that.
But Ollie, that's exactly what you were saying.
No, just most of Hollywood.
I meant that it's a pattern of thinking that artistic people can often... That's artistic. I hope I was clear there.
I know what you're going.
It's a pattern of thinking that those creatively inclined can often slip into.
We get you.
Yeah. You're right there, Lindsay. You haven't said anything in a while.
I've just been listening, to be honest. It's been interesting listening to you talk about all this.
Yeah.
It's good to know we're listening for.
Yeah. But, so BoJack never learned to appreciate himself by himself. His parents never did it for him. So, how was he supposed to know how to help Hollyhock? And, again, that doesn't make anything he did... That doesn't make anything he did okay, but it's a more sympathetic angle.
Yeah.
And to his credit, for once, the thing that drove her out of his life was not his fault.
No, and it's because he went out his way selflessly to try and help her that she ended up coming back to him.
Yeah. And that's an example of a grand gesture making a difference, which is something we'll get into next episode, I imagine.
But, unlike the earlier grand gestures, like stealing the deed while drunk, it's not out of selfishness.
Yeah, the other grand gestures were motivated by the fact that they were grand gestures and would have the effect that he wanted them to have.
Yeah. Whereas he said, even if, he never hears from her again, it's important that she knows these things.
Yeah. And that's what sets this one apart. But,
Yeah. That's two good things, in the space of, 2 episodes. And it does leave you hopeful at the end of the season.
Yeah. And then, of course, after the campaign for governor, we haven't touched on the underground episode, but that's just funny.
Yeah, that was a nice episode.
Yeah.
Was that fruitful from Dragon?
Let's not descend into a mob mentality. Did you hear that? He called us a mob. Get him.
I think if we're going to talk about that episode, we just need to get the Mr. Peanut Butter thing out of the way completely.
Go on.
So let's move on to Mr. Peanut Butter and his whole, hey, I want to run for governor.
Yeah.
Then, of course, when it doesn't look like he's winning, and Diane's like, oh no, you did so well, but I still love you. And so he decides to change into a ski race. This becomes its own fucking escapade.
Yeah.
Which, when it's finally accepted, he admits he doesn't know how to ski. Then he goes to ski school with which is basically how I would teach people. Pretend I have a disease that's killing me, while disregarding my student just by looking at them, but then deciding they have potential, giving a bunch of ridiculous lessons that don't actually teach them what they need to learn, and then die.
Yeah.
Because again, he doesn't teach him anything about skiing.
No. The real trick is to Ben. Who's Ben?
That's all he does. I mean, he turns up, mentions there's going to be no hijinks, claims he doesn't like Mr. Peanut Butter, but sees something in him, and then tells him to read, to read a book of poetry.
I think he just goes through all the tropes in quick succession.
I know, the whole, read this book of poetry. Did you read the book of poetry? I didn't. You have succeeded. Poetry has nothing to do with skiing.
It's just the unconventional mentor sort of trope.
Yeah, then suddenly,
like Mr. Miyagi.
And then suddenly starts coughing, and then suddenly he's just dying in a cocoon. And then he just dies. And then it doesn't really help because when Mr. Peanut Butter does finally come back to, do the skiing, he just falls down the mountain. As it turns out, Woodchuck was actually a good skier.
I like how that is what happened because
I do
like how his whole thing was just because he didn't research that his opponent could ski very well.
I do love the whole thing that I am astounded it has come to this. I think it's ridiculous that the fate of the governorship of California will be decided in a ski race. It just so happens that I'm a very good skier. But
he's the one rational person.
But I am astounded that it has come to this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it happens. And then, of course, Todd goes through and is like, is it over? Am I governor again?
Also, Jessica Biel ate somebody.
Yeah, and because of the fracking that Mr. Peanut Butter allows to happen under his house, the house falls into an underground, and it's there we get some pretty good interaction from BoJack and Diane, because this is the first time this season that they properly spend time together.
And it's one of the only times they do, actually.
Yeah. Because BoJack has been away for a year and not returning her calls, and this is the sticker, he didn't tell her he was back in LA.
Yeah.
And
the only people who knew he was back in LA were, Hollyhock, Channing Tatum.
Who I don't think we ever see on screen.
No, we didn't see him.
To a lot that he lives there.
Tell Channing Tatum I can't be his friend. I can't hurt him like this. I can't hurt him like so many others.
Oh.
Not Channing.
Oh.
I mean, it's one of the darker seasons, but it's also one of the funniest. It just ups the ante in every way.
He says that he didn't tell her because he wasn't ready to be seen by her yet. And, well, last season, BoJack told Diane that he needed her in his life. And then... Yeah, and Diane saying, I can't wait for you to be a part of my life. And here is where she says one of the most telling lines about both of them. "You're the biggest asshole I know, and you're the only one that makes any sense to me." Which, suggests that Diane is hardwired towards the same sort of cynicism as BoJack often displays.
Well, their similarities usually put them at odds, don't they?
Yeah, they're similar to each other in all of the wrong ways. But, well, not all of the wrong ways. They are two alike in a bad way.
Yes.
She doesn't have his drug problem.
Yeah, they feed each other's worst impulses, I think. But then they drink all the booze in the room and just get rat-assed together. And
meanwhile, of course, everyone else is stuck, and then they start worshipping the fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're about to sacrifice.
Jessica, believable.
And then they ate Zach Braff.
Oh, who cares?
He comes back.
Nobody
later.
gets still with you from halfway down.
Oh.
That's so?
Oh. But hey, he comes out as good as he went in.
Oh.
But yeah, then Woodchuck comes to save them and gets his hands damaged in the process.
Yeah.
One more cheer, just for good luck. On second thought, 3 was probably an adequate number of cheers.
There were 4 cheers. That's terrible.
They teased that. What's the phrase when, like, they're just like, you knew what was gonna happen and you're just waiting for it to happen.
Oh, foreshadowing.
Yeah. No, the tunnel collapsing thing. It's like it was obvious what was gonna happen, and they just dragged it out for as long as it possible before it. Yeah.
I don't know, but didn't Mr. Peanut Butter at the very beginning of this season have that whole thing where he talks about that trope?
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Vincent D'Onofrio was Mr. Peanut Butter.
I like how he's just really serious about it.
Yeah. This D'Onofrio has had enough Rio.
I mean, you can see why Mr. Peanut Butter is so infuriating to some of these characters because, we all know somebody who just lucks into great situations that they've not really earned.
Yeah.
Well, they do show that, don't they, with the whole him walking on the set.
Exactly. He was literally just walked in by chance and then great things happened for him.
Yeah.
After talking to Erica.
Yes, after talking to Erica, because of course he had to.
Hey, is Erica real? Is she just a figment of his imagination that's always there?
I buy that.
Established.
I would believe it, but
There's a theory that one of the extras in season 1 is Erica. I don't know, whether there's any truth to that, or whether it's just a theory, or...
Yeah. Oh.
This D'Onofrio has had an D'Onofrio.
Yeah. I just want to mention offhand the judge. They call him the judge.
Was that the whole thing with the Booty Academy?
Yeah, Felicity Huffman's Booty Academy.
Yes. I love that joke, and I like how they actually got Sir Mix-a-Lot to do that.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I'm famous for, it's that I cannot lie.
Yes, that would be the one thing.
How do they come up with these cameos? Because I read that half of the celebrities they just asked and they just got them on board, and the other half were big fans of the show and either specifically asked or said yes without question.
Yeah.
Like celebrities have actually asked to go on this show, and I love that.
Yeah. Oh, and the clown dentists. That's a thing that happens.
Yes.
Two things that are terrifying: clowns and dentists.
I like how it shows how tone deaf Todd can be sometimes.
Yeah. We need 40 cc's of honka stat.
He doesn't always quite get it, does he?
Yeah. Todd's more sensitive than pretty much everyone else on the show to other people's things that isn't Diane.
It is not.
But Yeah, except when he's not. And, yet it never feels contradictory, because, he's got that kind of a personality. And, of course, at the end, Diane basically pronounces her marriage dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, in one of the best, honestly, what I think was one of the best scenes in the series.
Yeah, a really good analogy about that magic eye painting.
It is because that's how I've described a few relationships myself.
And when she almost breaks down into tears after saying, "I'm so tired of squinting."
Yeah, I felt that. That felt real.
Yeah.
Like the next season a bit. No, the season after that.
Yeah. I mean...
Look, we knew... The thing is, I think I said to you before, originally, when it first came out, my first thought was, there was clearly, it was... The relationship was interesting because of just how different they were, and my curiosity was always going to be how Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, bounced off each other.
Yeah.
And I think I did say at the beginning, I think this relationship will just eventually break down because there's only Mr. Peanut Butter is always on, and he's always topping whatever ridiculous thing he did before.
Yeah.
And eventually, I think it's going to get to the point where Diane cannot take it anymore. There's only so much she can defend, and there's no BoJack for a while for her to, bounce off of.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, of course, the bell room, was the last straw for her because she's made it clear she doesn't like the grand gestures, and that's all he likes to do. I mean, look at the birthday party.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just how Mr. Peanut Butter thinks.
The thing is, Mr. Peanut Butter isn't a bad guy. He is loving. He likes to make grand gestures because he wants to make people feel special and stuff.
I mean,
but she doesn't like.
Sorry.
No, go on. I was done.
Yeah, to quote Damon Albarn, never did no harm. He never tries to.
Yeah.
And that's what sort of makes it hard to be mad at him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like everything he does is always coming from a good place, which is like the mirror opposite of BoJack in at times. Like whatever he does it with good intentions.
Yeah, whereas, it's either begrudging good intentions or, like, trying to get something out of it, like how he sabotages everything in the earlier seasons.
Except when he's finally at the end of his rope and doesn't really care about getting things for himself anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the end of their relationship, it was in a way, it's horrible to say, but I feel it was inevitable. It was going to happen because there's only so much. Diane compromises, and whenever they have a fight,
she puts up with a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they fight a lot more as the seasons go on. Like the whole, when it's a birthday, and they're arguing over someone being dead.
Yeah.
And he's insistent, and she can't take it because
Tony
she can't
Curtis.
accept that she knows. Yeah, Tony Curtis.
Is Tony Curtis dead? I mean, I'm not trying to start our own argument here. I'm just.
He's dead, Seb. He's dead. Why won't you?
I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, let's find out. Oh no, he died 10 years ago. That's sad. I remember being genuinely surprised and sad when I found out that Telly Savalas died because he looks very good for his age, like back in the 60s and 70s. And I didn't realise how old he was. Apparently he died in the 90s. Sorry, I'm going off subject to talk about Telly Savalas.
Well, I think we're about, we've talked about just about, we've touched on basically everything this season. Oh wow, we've been going for an hour and 18 minutes.
That's what BoJack
I mean, the one thing I've just been listening, and this whole time, but the one thing I want to say is just I'm really glad that Todd at least broached the topic of asexuality because I'm not fully asexual, but sex is a very take it or leave it thing for me, and I'm just I'm so glad to see that portrayed as normal for once. There must be something wrong with you.
Get ready for season 2, the next season when it comes out all in one go, and there's jokes entirely about plugging things up with his penis that should definitely be a rep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
this show treats everybody like a grown-up, and
Yeah.
treats the audience maturely. It's,
well, I know we spent a lot of this episode talking about, well, Princess Carolyn's parents that led into our own lives and things.
yeah.
But next season we do actually get to have the episode, so we may have just jumped the shark a little.
Well, exactly, but as long as you understand, when I said earlier you do realise we're on air, I just wanted to remind you in case you were saying anything sensitive that you wouldn't want to be out there.
At this point, I'm very open with what happened.
Yeah.
And
I know
still,
you
and I
consider
live
me
with the
better
fact.
than I know Lindsay, so I thought it,
In a way, as silly as it sounds, I like to think that everything I did, I made the right choice.
Yes, you did.
That doesn't sound silly.
I've never sat back and thought, what if I didn't do what I did?
No. Well, as long, if you've got no regrets, and that kind of says you did the right thing.
That's the thing. It's been bothering me for a while whether or not I made the right choice in leaving. But at the same time, I feel a lot better and a lot more fulfilled through it.
Sam, you know what would have happened if you'd stayed. The same thing that had been happening.
I know. I just sometimes
I mean, like the one thing I really regret is stuff which I couldn't have known at the time. Like, one of my relatives died, and because the rest of my family was horrible to her, I was the only one left in the will. I got about a couple of £1,000 from that. If I'd known at the time, I'd have bought up a bunch of A&B stock when it was like $1 a share, and it's now worth 10 times that. But at the time, I didn't know, and that's the only regret I really have about cutting my parents off.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, it's just one of those things I just think about. I just think sometimes if I made the right choice, and I don't really regret anything, but I do always sometimes think, what if I hadn't?
I think we
all. What if you've done something differently? Yeah.
Well, all he says, he knows. I know full well, but I just like thinking and hearing it. I made the right choice.
If you hadn't, unless something else came up, you'd still probably be hanging out with me at the moment.
Oh God!
Why are you trying to? He's definitely made the right choice.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like
I'm kidding. I love.
Yeah. Sam basically lived with me to avoid going home, so we'd probably have ended up being quarantined together.
You'd have killed each other.
Oh, your mum would have hated that.
It would have been like that episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns and Homer are trapped in that cabin in the snow.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that I'd murder Ollie?
One of you would murder the other with imaginary armies.
I have power.
Political power.
But also, so next season 5, and we are really coming up to the really fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
And that's saying something considering what we've seen the last.
It gets progressively more fucked up every season, doesn't it?
The next episode introduces whattimeitrighttnow.com, and also introduces my favorite characters, Henry Fondle.
Yeah.
Oh, and Flip's hilarious.
Yeah. Season 5 has my favourite episode in it.
Is it the free churro episode?
It is the free churro episode, yes.
Do you know what? I'm not sure, because there's so many episodes that I feel like could be my favourite, but I think it might be the best one.
Put it this way, I still buy the DVDs physically of BoJack just because I don't trust the internet anymore. But I love the show that much. I mean, my wife says the reason she cannot watch BoJack, the reason she cannot deal with it, is because it hits too close to home.
I totally get that. Only masochists like us can fully stomach BoJack.
It's one of those you have to be in the right mood for.
Well, I think what was telling of why I like this kind of humor is when I was frequently popping to Game Up here. They had an English guy working there, and they hated him because he was always so dark with his humor and so miserable with everything, so cynical with everything. And I was a regular in there, so they knew I was from England, and they said, we need you to settle something. Why are you English people always so miserable when you come up here? And I just said, it's the way our country is. Our country sucks. We hate it, and we hate everything down there, and the only way we can get through our lives down there is to be cynical and find humor in the dark stuff. Depending on which area you live in, yeah, that's how you can stomach most of these things. And that's kind of why I like some of the dark. I can sit through some of the darker stuff, as uncomfortable as the show can get sometimes.
But to surmise, what do we all think?
Yeah.
I think season 4 has a very interesting blend of the craziness of Mr. Peanut Butter, interesting revelations of Beatrice's entire backstory, complete with BoJack's entire living in that house and the guy who fixes his door.
Yeah.
I love that. Hey, stop fixing my door! And the fact that he fights off a bunch of crabs with salad tops.
Yes.
So that gas station still hasn't been repaired. Not since Beatrice's mother crashed into it.
Oh, I love those tiny details. I could make like an hour-long video showing all of them in the show, because that would blow my mind. Because I notice these things sometimes.
It's also got the drama of Diane's slow descent into I can't take this anymore. The seriousness of Hollyhock's entire I want to find my parents thing, and BoJack's really touching thing with his mom. Yeah. I still think the whole thing's touching, even if the whole situation leading up to it isn't great. And honestly, the most uncomfortable I really felt for personal reasons, obviously, was the whole Princess Carolyn thing. I sympathise with a lot of how my wife feels about this, and I can really understand why it would hurt her so much.
Yeah.
So those bits were a bit more uncomfortable for me personally.
Well, BoJack teaches us empathy in general, doesn't he?
I think loss is the dominant theme this season.
Yeah.
Because, the Beatrice episode where it shows the mother losing everything that she is kind of foreshadows Beatrice's dementia. I just think that's a really interesting, not parallel, but,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. And in so many of the flashbacks of Beatrice, they burn all her toys. She loses the chance to marry Corbin Creeverman.
That can be traumatic for a child, especially if it's something they really care about.
Yeah. Loss is definitely the name of the game here, is what I think.
And the game is very hard to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that a reference to something?
No, it's not.
I genuinely couldn't tell at first.
Oh, sounds like Madam's awake.
Fair enough.
I think that's
I think it's a good time to call it to close. Then.
Yeah. I think that is a good time.
I don't know, Nicole. What do you think?
Oh, now she's quiet.
Oh. What do you like? Why am I asking? I know what you like.
Oh, give me a necklace.
Oh,
nice.
Isn't that nice?
Cool.
Why is it a vial of blood? Where did you get this? You? Oh yeah. Right.
All right. Well, we'll call it here then. Guys, do you have anything to plug?
Not at the moment. So I'm kind of on hiatus with a lot of my work.
Right.
Michelle Branch's cover of A Horse with No Name is really good, and you should listen to it.
Yeah, I like that cover.
Yeah, I have it on my Spotify. It's awesome. Oh yeah, that's the thing we don't often talk about with BoJack. The soundtrack is brilliant.
It is.
They just always pick the right song. I love the in-house soundtrack.
Yeah.
It just feels.
It's so consistently good that we don't even remember to mention it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those shows where the soundtrack just sort of bleeds into it, and
it feels natural.
Yeah.
There isn't a single song in this entire thing that feels out of place in the wrong time. Anything. It's all perfectly placed. It's all got the perfect theme.
You hear 5 seconds of it, you know what you're watching.
It knows exactly how to make you feel for a specific scene. It knows how to do sadness. It knows how to do upbeat. It knows how to do just crazy drinking whack-a-zaid from a clown shoe or silly. Usually that's the sounds around Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter. You know, like when they kidnap the meerkat and then try and do an entire thing with spaghetti strainers.
All good media makes you feel everything at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been going for an hour and a half, where I usually like to keep these to an hour, but it seemed like we'd have more to talk about.
Yeah.
But
with four different opinions and a lot of other things going on, BoJack is not just something you can cram into an hour.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's not something you can cram into an hour, and it's certainly not like WWE Raw that has 3 hours and struggles to fill it.
I could talk about this for like 8 hours. I mean, I don't think we should because
you could honestly spend an entire day talking about a season, every little bit, how each episode was, how it made you feel, what it was relevant to, everything, and it still wouldn't be enough, in my opinion. BoJack has so much going on to it that's written, and I don't think you can honestly sit back and say a single season feels weak. There isn't.
Well, you could argue the first one is weaker.
The first one is an establishing season.
That's like saying there's bad episodes of Avatar. There really aren't any bad episodes of Avatar. There are just episodes that aren't as good.
Yeah. I mean, if you are to accept that The Great Divide is the worst episode, then the worst I could is, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot better than I remember it being.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's not like Legend of Korra where it's just a mess, isn't it?
I like Legend of Korra.
But I think they did well considering that they only were given one season, then they were given another season, then they couldn't really plan the whole thing out like they did with the first Avatar. And I think that definitely shows.
I think the only thing we can say that's bad about Avatar is the live action.
Speaking of which, Seb, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, we've got something coming up in the not too distant future. Ollie, should I say much at this point?
No.
It's going to take some. Yeah, it's going to take some.
No need to report that until there is something to report.
Exactly my thoughts. We're taking Ray philosophy.
So when I hear live action, Avatar,
sorry, Liz,
I'm thinking of the alien planet Pandora one.
Yes, I know.
Alright, I need to go now, so it's good to hang out with you, and I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Yes, very nice.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
I'm gonna have to buy again.
Right.
I am not ready. I haven't got enough cigarettes to sit through that one.
I didn't know you smoked. Or was that just a...
That's right, I don't even get one.
Not if you want to be in my house, bugger.
All right.
I chose this life.
Okay.
I chose it and I love it.
You've been spent against your...
Okay.
I don't know.
Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.
Your-
Yes,
um,
Bye.
Bye. Okay.